Good? Okay, good. Yeah.
You go through,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You want eggs. So we're.
thank you.
We're closing.
It's telling you.
I thought they, make fun of her. I feel used to her.
Did they decide on the house?
Oh, the potato. Yeah, they yesterday.
Oh, we did get into Republican.
Yeah.
So the house is run by, the house is, Republican.
Yeah.
And the Senate is.
The problem with.
I mean, the Senate
in the
is
White House.
Democrat, right?
The problem is in the White House.
He's gonna write a show.
Yeah, well, he's really running the show.
God is running.
That's right.
We're all puppets.
Yeah. Well, I told you you're an actor.
Listen, I'm not talking now, I'm only talking about myself. On you talk.
You?
Don't make that, so $6 doesn't
Oh, Daniel, good morning, Daniel.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
You good? The third question looks very interesting.
Which one?
That's the
Lights
brother
is
Zorah.
down
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think anyone today admires this.
Right. Hey, you're gonna watch? You're going to watch?
No.
Oh, good. That's a bracha. When it's packed, it's good. We have a mitzvah bracha here. Oh, very good.
Azalta, who is the bar mitzvah boy?
Menachem Mendel is gegangen waschen. Oh, good morning, Moshe. Yeah.
Hercules the better bagel. Where is he? Oh, there's the big left. Thank you.
You might have to take a nap after that.
Okay, good morning. It's a bar mitzvah, and I would like to tell all the orchim for the mitzvah, we give a shir now. And if you get tired, you're welcome. You don't have to stay. You're welcome to stay as long as you want. But I want to get started on the shir that we usually do at 10:15. Three questions that I want to deal with that people asked me this week. One is, my daughter works here in a restaurant, and she said there's a very popular salad. There's a very popular salad. They're called a Rebecca salad. So the shaila is, that they put shavings of corn on it. What's the bracha? What's the bracha on the corn, raw corn? And the other question, someone asked about donating blood. Is it a mitzvah? Is it an absolute obligation? Sachiv de'eraisa, de'rabanan? Is it mutter? Is it also? What's the donating blood? What's the halakha view of donating blood? And then a kid sent me a picture this week. She's sitting on the base of one of those statues in Grand Army Plaza, and a girl. She said, "Oi, I just realized I might be sitting and having enough of my Avodah Zorah." So I thought it was quite cute that a kid should have that sensitivity, and it is. I can't say it's not a shaila, but we'll deal with it. This will be the third shaila we'll deal with today. Okay, let's read inside a little bit. Let's read quickly. Avodah Mitzrayim as Bnei Yisrael beforech. The Avodah says the word beforech. That we do karpas. Why do we do karpas? Because the word karpas is samach perech, shishim ribu of the avodas perech. Because there was a 60 ribu Jews that the word avodas perech. That's why we eat karpas. Now, Chabad minig is not to make it easy for you to feel a little bit taka. So we eat a raw onion. So a raw onion is not so delicious, and you dip it in the salt water, you feel a little bit the meridus. So someone asked, Chabad asked me, someone came into shul and said, don't understand, how does Chabad make a bird of Adama on a raw onion, that on a raw onion, the bracha shakel midvore. So rhetorically, I answered that you should tell the person that in the Shulchan Aruch it says that raw carrots are shahakol midvore too, and we make today adama. But that really was a rhetorical question. It was not the real answer, because the person's question was better than my answer. So now I'm going to give the emissary answer. So the Shulchan Aruch writes like this. The Machaber writes, "Krov v'silke v'kruv v'kayoytze v'hem shatoivim u'v'sholem yoytze nachayim." All these vegetables, cabbage, and so on, that it's better when they're cooked. Shem chaim avar shahakol lache b'sholem beire pri adama. V'tumi v'karti. Tumi is garlic. Shem chaim beire pri adama. Lache b'sholem shahakol. What you always make the bracha, eitz adama, what's the proper way to eat it? If the proper way to eat it is equally through bishul or raw, so then it's adama or eitz, equally when they're raw or they're cooked. But if the derech is to eat it only cooked or only raw, so when you eat it kedarko, you make the proper bracha. When you eat it shaloi kedarko, you make a shahaka. Says the Taz, nira lani is daiti lechaleg min shumin. I think that there would be a big difference in the different, because he thinks there's different types of garlic. The b'shum shelo yiskin, and not an old garlic, a young garlic. Adayin roi la'och lechayin afila b'la pas. A young garlic is delicious. You can eat it. It's a roi to eat it without bread. It's a roi. Here's the mistake that a lot of poskim made in the Taz is the words roi. Roi la'ochlam. They thought it meant darker la'ochlam. Roi la'ochlam chayin afila b'la pas. You could eat it without pas. Al kain ikar b'rocha b'chosa b'chilose chay. So what's the real way of eating an onion? When it's raw. It almost sounds, in the days of the Taz, you had a choice. When your child went in the morning on the bus, you asked them, what would you like? Would you like an onion or an apple, or perhaps an orange? And sometimes the kid said, yeah, I'd like to have an onion. And he'd go on the bus, he'd peel the onion and chum, and he would enjoy it. It sounds that way from the Taz. Avalim hiskin, but if the onion became an old onion, that it's not right to eat the onion raw, it's worse even than vinegar. The Isa b'simen eish dalad afila einin chametz harbel asher b'nei adam nimnoim lishtoisei mevarich alav shahakol kal v'choyme zeh ashum shu soidef memoid. The Metzina we find in the Medrash that the botzal balapita nasiv liba, that if you eat the onion without bread, it hurts the heart because it's very sharp. The shum shu godel soidef tfeimi botzal. The Taz says garlic is even worse than onion. How can you shlevarich b'zeh shuchai shahakol? Because it's not the derech to eat these old onions and old garlics raw. I don't know what he means old. It means it's hanging off the ceiling already for 3 weeks and then they're dry, or I don't know exactly. But old onions, you can't eat them raw. So therefore, when they're raw, that's not the derech achilasa. If you're going to cook it, it becomes derech achilasa, and then it's beire pri adama. And he says, "K'may das harif aliba the tur." That's the shit of the rif. V'nira shahakol moedim bozeh. The Demis, all the poskim will agree here. Keloi mighty. They were not talking the shum shehiskin. They were talking about a young. So it's not a machlokas a poskim. If it's everyone will agree. If it's a young onion, a young garlic, that you could eat it raw. And if it's old, you can't eat it raw. The tchilas that he also has like kavanuk shodain the tzor verach yechlu chayik shiask yechlu mavushel dafka kain need it day tchiluk bor v'nochem. From the words, it sounds like, and look at the Shari Tshuva, he understood it that way. It sounds from the Taz, the simple reading of the Taz is that the Taz thought that in his days it was a normal thing to have an orange, an apple, or an onion. So if it's a young onion, people love to chomp in it. It's very hard to imagine that in the days of the Taz it was that way. And as you'll see soon, the Alter Rebbe doesn't learn that way. But you can't blame the Mishnah Brura or the Shari Tshuva for thinking that way. But that's what the Shari Tshuva thought. Zorah writes the Shari Tshuva. B'medina seinu shelo'olam ein oichlem hashomim v'b'tzom avshem rakim and loy tafel lepas.
Put something on it.
Oh, he says no one eats raw onions and raw garlics and chumps. Oh, they put it with salad. They put it with bread. So you say, oh, v'oz ein chiyu bracha klal aleim, because it'll be tafel to the pas. He says, really, onions, if you eat plain, or garlic plain, should be shahakol. Second problem, he says, you don't make a bracha on spice, and because onions are a spice, that the kovush tzli mavushel. So you don't make a bracha on spice, and you only make a shahakal on spice. If taka you find a place that people love to chomp on onions, so then you can shor yerakis. It'll be like carrots. Today we make Avodah pri adama even though it's raw. So, and then the Mishnah Berurah is the same thing. The Mishnah Berurah says, "Ayin shari tshuva shemetzaded loyma dafila arakim einem avara Avodah pri adama rakba bedina shederech loacham rakim b'lapas avol b'medina tzedel shaloylam ein derech in adam lachol shumim tzalim chaim avchem rakim b'lapas and varch el shahakol v'chem metzaded b'nish metzadel varch shahakol." The bottom line is, the Mishnah Berurah says, look, the Taz's days, they were funny people, and they used to like to chomp on raw onions. But today, no one likes to chomp on raw onions, and no one likes to eat raw garlic. So therefore, raw onions and raw garlics are shahakal. That's what the Mishnah Berurah paskins of Poil. The Alter Rebbe says not that way. Before we read the Alter Rebbe inside, the Alter Rebbe, there was one key word. The Alter Rebbe didn't think that in the days of the Taz, people were so crazy that they loved to chomp on onions. The Taz was saying is like this: there's old onions that are like garlic, that are like vinegar. It's terrible. You can't drink a cup of vinegar. So the old garlics and the old onions are you can't have unless you put it with a salad or you put it in bread. The young onions, roi, the heftze, it's a roi la'ochla b'lapas. But ein derech, the gavre doesn't eat it plain onions. Usually, unless he chops it up and puts it in a salad or puts it as a sandwich and puts it on the bread. What the Taz says, roi la'ochloi, means it's a roi. The heftze is a roi. But eina derech la'ochloi b'la pas, the gavre is going to eat it with pas. And that's the way the Alter Rebbe angelar in the Taz. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe comes out with a chidush. That even something that you don't eat raw, plain, only in a salad and bread. But what's the difference? Well, a poil, you eat it raw, and therefore it does have a bracha. So, if you can eat it with bread, you make a moitzi and everything is potter. But if you're going to have you're going to have a salad, and you made a separate bracha for everything in the salad, so the onion deserves a Avodah pri adama if you have the onion separate. Let's read it in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch Rabbeinu Kosa. Afilu imini yiroke she'ein derech. He didn't say ein roi. Ein derech roi b'nei adam l'ochlum chaim. Ela yedei pas or davar achik. Kegoin betzolam k'yotze mem l'ochlum lifnei atzmai. So these yirokes, they're not the derech to eat them only with pas or in a salad like onions. Now he wants to eat the onion plain. So the bracha has the regular bracha, Avodah pri adama. Omekom hakim shuma basel sheiskinu ve'enam ruim la'achlam chaim b'lapas v'neishim sorfen b'ma'oid mevorech aleim shahakol. But if it's an old onion, an old garlic, and it burns your mouth, so there, if you ate it plain, it's shahakol. Kamoy al choymet, says the Alter Rebbe. Just like vinegar. Hoil v'nishtana l'griyusa, because it became worse. By the way, I just want to mention, in the Shulchan Aruch says in vinegar there's two levels. There is vinegar that's terrible. It burns your stomach, it burns your esophagus, and there's no bracha on it because it's dangerous to eat. It says you don't make any bracha. And then there is a vinegar which is wine that was good wine, and now it turned sour, so it loses its bracha Avodah pri agafen. Why? Because we say that everything was nishtana lekilkul. It loses its bracha. So I don't care if the bracha was Avodah min hamazonos or moitze lechem min haaretz or the bracha was Avodah pri eitz or Avodah pri adama. It doesn't matter. If it's niskalkel and dover shel kilkul always loses its bracha because it went legreusa. So that's what the Alter Rebbe is saying. Continues shema v'shalom, the onions mevarech aleim Avodah pri adama. These old onions. Afilo bishul mifnei atzma, afilo bishul derech echilosam v'shalom. Don't tell me that onions are like a spice. Onions are choshuv. It's not like a pepper, garlic powder. Onion powder is different than pieces of onion. To kimmel ground kimmel kiyetzer them kshem betavshin lechlos on chosh shein asuim lachil klal vik af chabishn of natsma afilo ich l'chaim and barchlen al shakel k'mashkos b'sem reish dalet. The Alter Rebbe is the sort of, he didn't see the Shara Tshuva that Tshuva left maybe after the Alter Rebbe, but he's answering on that Zorah. That you might think that onions are like spices, and all spices, doesn't matter if they grow on the tree or on the ground, any spice, if you decide, ooh, you love the spice, you put a little bit on your tongue, black pepper, I love black pepper, put some black pepper on your tongue. So even though black pepper grows on a tree, peppercorns grow on trees, and Beika today they come from India. But there's other countries in the world that the peppercorn is it's a very good trees. They're hardy trees, and they're not buried at Prio 8, but onion, he says, is not like a spice. Just like I explained before, the Alter Rebbe didn't think that the Alter Rebbe didn't think that in the days of the Taz, people like to chomp on onions. In the days of the Taz, they would eat it with the bread too. He's saying that onion is not like vinegar. It doesn't burn your esophagus. So therefore, people eat it with bread. Therefore, you make a bracha b'yde pri adama. So therefore, this answers the question. The person asked, how come in Chabad, in the night of the Seder, we make a b'yde pri adama on an onion? The Shulchan Aruch says, to make a shahakal. The answer is Shulchan Aruch never said it. The Taz said something, and the Shari Tshuva misunderstood the Taz, according to the Alter Rebbe, and the Mishnah Berurah also misunderstood in the Taz, again, according to the Alter Rebbe. Mishnah Berurah probably thought he understood the Taz, but the Alter Rebbe thought he misunderstood. The Alter Rebbe, the Mishnah Berurah thinks that the Taz was talking in his days, people love to chomp on onions plain. The Alter Rebbe says, no. He meant to say it's a roy la'ochlo. It's not like choimitz, but the versteht sich darkem la'ochlam impas. And when the Alter Rebbe read the Taz, that anything which is darke la'ochlam im dover acharo impas it doesn't lose its bracha. So onions today is very popular to put onions in salad. Most salads have onions in them, and raw onions, not fried onions.
There was a Little Rascals episode where the kids were eating scallions. And the breath was smelling. It was a whole comedy. So, but you saw in the episode like it was normal.
Because normal.
Just to show you an example that back in the 20s, 30s, even in America,
it was. So the truth is, there are countries that like Russians, that they like to chomp on onions. But I think today in America, it's not the derech to chomp on onions, and also not on scallions.
No, just like in the 30s.
Right. But the chiddush of the Alter Rebbe is that if you cut up scallions and you put it in your salad raw, and you cut up onions and you put it in the and now you decided to eat a piece of scallion or a piece of onion, it's not a usual question. Why? Because usually people don't eat.
Right.
Is it a total to the salad?
That's a good question. Maybe yeah, maybe no. The question now is if he took the onion and ate it separately.
Right.
So because usually he eats the onion raw, chopped up in the salad, so therefore it deserves its regular bracha b'yde pri adama. That's why the Minhag Chabad is in the night the night of Pesach. Why they take dafka on onion? So that's a separate question. Could be because an onion you feel a little bit of bitterness. Potatoes geschmack. Where you feeling this? You're not feeling the samach perech. The shishim ribu oivda avodas perech. But when you chomp down a piece of onion, you feel a little bitterness. The Jews felt bitterness in there, and that's why we're eating the karpas in the beginning of the Seder. But the question is, how could you make adama? Now I want to bring it back to the Rebecca salad that my daughter tells me is the hottest item in her restaurant. So they take a corn and they shave it and they put it on the top of the salad. So usually people today don't eat raw corn. Now the truth is it became more popular to eat raw corn anyway. But for argument's sake, say that in New York, most people don't eat corn unless it's cooked. Most people consider.
Isn't there a problem with infestation with corn?
I never heard that there should be an infestation with corn. Yeah, infestation with corn?
No, 3 or 4 years I heard something.
So 3 or 4 years, not a diet for today. With vegetables.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, as I'm saying, it's not a diet for today. But then klal corns, I think, are quite clean. Especially if you're going to shave them, so then you see them. The question would be if you chomp them on the thing, but if you take a knife and you shave off the sides of the corn and you put it on a plate and you look at it and you don't see bugs, so there's no bugs. Now, if you know there's an infestation is different, then that's all bets are off. But I don't know of any infestation today in corn. So what do I want to say? That even though that l'chayda, you say today in New York, people don't eat plain corn. People like to cook the corn. But even though people like to cook the corn, but people became popular to put corn in the salad. So just like the onion, just like the Alter Rebbe teaches the Taz, that because the onion it's not like vinegar, it's royalty, and people do eat it with pas. So therefore, it retains its real bracha by the Pri Adama. The same thing, if you're going to go to this restaurant and get the salad, the Rebecca salad, with the corn on top, so you can't make a shahakal on that corn. You can't make a shahakal. Anius daiti, that corn is adama, and you can make adama on the corn, or you can make adama on the romaine lettuce, but you can't make shahakal on it. You can make shahakal on the water you drink, on the apple juice, on the Coca-Cola you drink, on the coffee, but you can't make shahakal. Huh? I'm saying if it's on your plate, I'm saying you can make adama on whatever, on the corn, on the romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce, adama. Yeah. Romaine lettuce, adama. Now, there is one of the big oinim from the Talmidim from Chassam Sofer, Sefer Minchas Pitim, the Meir Arik, and he says there's a steer in the words of the Alter Rebbe. He leaves it with a big kasha, and then there's answers. He says that in Shulchan Aruch is brought about the Pesach. If a person doesn't have Nebach, could you imagine? People were very poor. If he doesn't have a special vegetable for karpas, what are you supposed to do? So you're supposed to eat the mortar in the beginning of the Seder. So in those days in Europe, they didn't have romaine lettuce. They only had horseradish. So the Magen Avram says, yeah, but you could eat the horseradish instead of the karpas, but you can't make adama because it's terrible. It burns your mouth. So the Choik Yaakov says, no, you could still make adama. Why? Because sometimes people eat on a sandwich, they'll put a little bit of chrein on the sandwich or on the fish. So therefore, it does have the bracha adama. The Alter Rebbe paskins like the Magen Avram, but it's nishkan kasha, because a horseradish is almost as bad as the vinegar that burns your esophagus. There was a chip, they had a lawsuit lately, there's one of the chip companies, the chip was so burny that they had that. Was that one? They had people when the Rahman al getting holes in their esophagus. The kids were eating too much of that chip.
Oh my God!
I forget what it was. It was a chip recently that they were pulling from the shelves. The kids loved it. No, not your Bloom's barbecue potato chip. Don't worry, you can keep on eating the Bloom.
Like jalapenos.
Something. The kids loved it, but the doctors liked it too. But the mommies don't like it. And the kids also don't like it once they're in pain. I don't know what it was. There was a chip that they pulled because it was burning holes in esophagus. So that's what heavy vinegar does, and that's what if you're going to take horseradish and chomp on it, that's what the horseradish is going to do for you too. So verstetzach over there is no bracha. Now you can eat it with bread. What does a 0 plus a 0 give you? 0. You have to put a number in order if you get something. So buy onions that are roy to eat. Elamai, the shailas, do people really eat it? They eat it with bread or with salad, so they eat it. But don't bring me a kasha from the fact that the Alter Rebbe said the horseradish has no bracha. Ich verstehe why horseradish has no bracha. That's not a kasha. That's no kasha. So to summarize, anything that you eat in bread or with a salad, even though it's raw, it retains its original bracha, and that's why I would say that corn shavings is the bracha is beire pri adama, and that's the reason the minik Chabad and I say to make adama on the onion. Someone asked me a question about giving blood to blood bank. So the shittas in here range very much from from a Rav Menashe Klein who thinks it's Osir, and the Nishmas Avram, who's a doctor. He was a very choshev doctor. He wrote the Sefer called Mishnas Avram, and he thinks it's not only a mitzvah but it's a chiyuv. Menashe Klein said it's
How can
Osir.
it be? Why should it be also? What's
So
the-
let me explain. Why should it be Osir?
Right.
Well, first of all, let me preface. We're not talking about a case where there's a blood bank that needs blood, befrat if there's Jews that need it.
Right.
If
Pasha,
that's Pasha, it's
That's
Pikuach
right.
Nefesh, and what's the question? It's a mitzvah and a big mitzvah.
Right.
The question is if the blood banks are not looking right now, but they want extra reserves and befrat if they're giving a financial incentive. So it's like, it's not something that they really need.
Career motives.
Right. So that was where the question is asked. First, let's read inside. It has to do with this week's Parsha. In the Parsha, we say, "V'hine shnei anoshim ivrim nitzim, v'yomer l'rosha lo masaker eyech." So there's an unbelievable Maimon Chazal that the Maimon Chazal says, and there's machlokas bemis, but the Gemara learns that Saka means he didn't hit him yet. He didn't hit him yet. He picked up his hand and was planning to hit him.
Right.
And really, who were these guys? The troublemakers that were troublemakers from day one to the last day. Dosan Aviram. And Dosan Aviram got into a fight. And there's Meforshim that say there wasn't even a real fight. It wasn't even a real fight. They wanted to get Moshe involved because they already had a bone to pick with him then. So they had a game fight. Mazel tov. They had a game fight. They didn't have a real fight. And one of them picked up his hand to hit the other guy. Before he hit him, Moshe Rabbeinu called him a Rosha. The Gemara learns from this that even if he didn't hit his Chaver, but he picked up his hand to hit another Yid, he's called a Rosha. And there's implications for that. It's implications. There's like, so Moshe didn't know that. Moshe didn't know that. Moshe didn't know that.
Be considered any kind of a variant.
Okay. Let's read it inside. Osir lahakas lo aschavede v'miko oive baloitase shenemar v'hoyim bina koisa rosh arbam yakena lo Yosef ben Yosef v'mikpida toida bakos rosh shela koisa Yosef arisha kal v'chema bakos tzadik v'chol ama made him yadol chavede la koisa. If a person picks up his hand to hit his friend, Abba pisha lo hiko nikra rosh shenemar v'yemar lo rosh lo masaker yacha lo meikisa lo nemer lo matake. V'chol mishihika chaveda reim muchrim v'emet b'chenim akadmoinim v'em l'tzar f'lominyan asori. Chol davar shebegedusha tchiater lebezin achenim shekamu l'shmoy l'dinim shulchan aruch rabbeinu reishel cheschem v'mazik. There's more implications, but this is the most important first thing. If a chas v'sholem, a person hits someone else, he's not allowed to be part of a minyan. He has to go to a bezin and he has to ask mechila and say that he's not going to hit the Jew anymore.
Yes, get Mechila from the base, even from the hit.
That's a step. The Bezdin, he didn't say what the Bezdin is going to tell him. The Bezdin might tell him to ask Mechila. The Bezdin might tell him to be Matthias, the person financially, whatever. He has to go to Bezdin and listen to what the Bezdin is going to tell him. It's not good enough to be Matthias, the other guy. He has to go to Bezdin and to be Mateh the Chayrim, and then he's allowed to be counted as part of a minyan. And it's so humble. We pass him like the argument that even if he didn't hit him, he just picked up his hand to hit another yid. So we see that this thing's a very, very it's a very chomodik thing. It's a very chomer thing. So let's go through a few of the shittas about giving blood. So, as I said before, we're not talking about if another yid needs blood, it's a mitzvah gedolah to give blood right away. We're also not talking about blood banks in Israel even, because we know for sure. We're talking about here's a little bit the dicey questions. You're chutz la'aretz, you're in a place where there's not a lot of Jews. It's even not in New York. It's hard to say in New York. There's so many yidden that can't be going to. So the blood banks are serving yidden and going equally. So if Maimonides Hospital, NYU doesn't have reserves of blood, then the yid could come in and bleed out, and if they don't have the blood to save them, mamish, you need the blood there immediately to save a person's life. if there's a few minutes of hesitation and they don't have blood, Rahman al-Islam, the person could lose their life. So, but we're talking, the Tshuvas are talking here about in a lesser case. The question someone asked the Menashe Klein was that he has a rare type of blood, and this I'm not so. It's a funny thing. So, and there's a certain type of blood bank that they take. If you, it's like you get brownie points there. If you donate a few pints of blood, and later in life you need, and it was a rare type of blood. So, and you need that, you can only compatible for that type of blood. So then you have, so
Priority.
autism.
What?
Priority.
Yeah, because you gave. So he asked, they're not making any drive right now. But he's thinking, maybe Chas v'Shalom one day he might need blood. So why not? And he has a rare type of blood. So why not? He's healthy. He's young and healthy. He'll give a couple of pints of blood, and later in life, if he needs it, it'll be good. Obviously, he's not giving him back his blood. They try to. They're using it, but he. Okay. In the meantime, I'll get a bagel and okay. So that was his question. So I want you to understand. Menashe Klein said it's also, but he was talking a specific case. They were not doing a blood drive. No one needed blood. And this guy was thinking about his own future. So that was the question. So, but still, a person, listen, I can do whatever I want. It's a free country. It's America. I want to have a bagel and cream cheese, and they're giving, and I want to go to the blood bank, and I want to give a pint of blood. What are you telling me what to do? But the answer is, Torah does tell a person. The person is not allowed to hurt himself for no reason. And the main thing that Menashe Klein said is, how do you know you'll ever be sick? David should help you be healthy. He said, exactly. Who says you'll ever be sick? If someone else is sick and he needs blood, there is a drive at a blood bank or something else. And even that, he's a little squeamy. The Menashe Klein says, oh, you're going to give blood for Goyim. But again, I think Menashe Klein could be, he was talking, maybe it was because it was a specific type of blood that it's not so common by Jews. I'm not sure. Because it's hard to imagine, like in New York, if a hospital is doing a blood drive, like I said, you didn't come into hospitals in New York all the time,
Right.
and I mean, obviously, there's another issue. If Yidden never gave blood, it would be a terrible right. So, but anyway, I'm just going to read to you what Menashe Klein wrote. He said it's asur. He has a long tshuva about it, and his main thing is he quotes a Rambam, Hilchos Kovel Umazik. The Rambam writes, you're not allowed to hurt yourself, or you're not allowed to hurt another Jew. If you're hitting a Yid and his Adam kosher, ben kotten, ben godel, ben ish, derech nitzion, most poets can possibly like that Rambam. It's not a machlokes in the Gemara, and most poets can think that it's also in a Torah. So he said he had a beautiful chiddush, and this is it'll be very important soon. You look in the words of the Rambam, and the Rambam says, also lachba laadam lachbal bein ba'atzmei bein mechavere v'lo yachev b'vad kol hamak adam Yisrael bein godel bein kotten bein ish derech nitzion as ever b'loy tas. So I'm going to show you soon. The Nishmas Avram said it's only derech nitzion. It's only if you're hurting someone. Nitzion. He's fighting. Like, where do we find this? By Shnei Anoshim Ivrim Nitzim. Shnei Anoshim Ivrim Nitzim. Nitzim. You see where the Rambam took the word from. Shnei Anoshim Ivrim Nitzim. So if it's derech nitzion, because Dos and Aviram, when we're like, the character that you imagine of Dos and Aviram, that when they were fighting, even before Dawson gave a gazette's the punch to Aviram, or the other way around, it wasn't that he said he's trying to get the bagel and he's trying to get his way through, and accidentally, he tried to he wanted to get the sushi, and accidentally he bumped his chave. Knowing Dawson and Aviram from all the midrashim, in our mind, the way it's come to us, that Dawson stood there with he said, "What did you say?" and he picked up his hand like this. And that's the pshat, Anoshim Ivrim Nitzin. It was derech Nitzyon. It was derech Nitzyon. It was that derech. So says the Nishmas Avraham, that's when it's also to hurt. But if it's in a friendly way, you're mutter. So the doctor and you that are doing the bloodletting, when you're donating a pint of blood, they're not doing it derech Nitzyon. So that's what the Nishmas Avraham says.
What
Nitzyon, like Dawson with his fist on top of Avido. That's Nitzyon. But when the with aggression, exactly. But when you and the nurse or the doctor is donating a pint of blood, no one's doing it b'derech nitzyon. No one's being aggressive over here. They smile, they put a little thing, and they clean it with a little alcohol, and they're saying yashakayach and thank you, and they're giving you a bagel and cream cheese. They're not doing it derech nitzyon. So it gesagt the Mishnah Halachas that you're reading the Rambam wrong. He says you have to read it like this. There's two parts that the Rambam is saying. He says you're reading it wrong. The Rambam is saying like this. Period. A chabola means to take our blood. And that's unconditional. I don't care if you're doing it with aggression or without aggression. Then he says, choivel means he's letting out blood. Not only when he's choivel, al kol hamaka odem kosher miyisrael. Bein kotam, bein godel, bein ish, bein isha, derech nitzyon azeh zoiv b'loi tasa. That if you're making a chabola, you're letting out blood. I don't care if it's derech nitzyon, not derech nitzyon. You're not allowed to. But if you're hitting him, what's if it's friendly? Friends sometimes will go over to, oh, good morning, how are you? And you give him like this. Oh, saying you're mocking? You're just like Dawson Vavito? Come on. Mr. Azar brings every shalashudas and takes care of every breakfast. I'm so excited. And I come out like this and I give like this. You're gonna tell me that's Avodah. If I meant it as a friend, then that's not called market. But that's what he's saying. Kabbalah is also, I don't care. There's no such thing. You're not allowed to bloodlet of another Yid, unless it's l'refuah. But Makkah is only derech nitzyon. That was the opinion of the Menashe Klein. The other opinion is that's mutter, the Igris Moshe. Let's read the Igris Moshe. Beis. Aber b'Kabbalah zu lohoitzi dam api hashgacha saroifim yesh tam gadol shlo lesa da metzina shebederes akadmayim manoig ol hakas dam af rak lakula k'mefurish b'Shabbos daf chavtes v'gam isa sham. Beis. That this is the Igris Moshe and Chosh Mishpet Chelakal of Simakuv Gimel. Kabbalah zu lohoitzi dam api hashgacha saroifim yesh tam gadol shlo lesa da metzina shebederes akadmayim manoig ol hakas dam af lakuli k'mefurish b'Shabbos daf kuf chavtes v'gam isa sham amashmol pursa da dam kol klas in Yemen ben urva der boim shnin vachkach ad shish shana achas l'shtei chadashim v'af achas l'shishim achas l'gimel chadashim. The Gemara, bottom line is, it says the Gemara has all over the Talmud about makas dam. In the days of the Talmud, they thought that one of the healthiest things to do is to do bloodletting. It's called akozas dam.
Yeah.
And the Gemara talks about it all over.
Yeah, it's an
All
practice.
over. It was an old practice.
Right.
Barbers
So,
used to do it. Barbers used to do it.
Oh, yeah?
There's a sign, you have the red and white on there. The red is the blood that they used to let out.
So while they give you a haircut, they do a little bit of bloodletting?
If you wanted. They wouldn't do it unless you paid for it.
Right. ולכן, אף שנשתנה אחר כך, כמוי, בזמן הרמב"ם, דקוס, פרק ד' מלכות דייס, הלכות חשייקס רק, בצורך לזה ביוסר. The Rambam writes that in his days, you shouldn't bloodlet, only if you mamish know you need it. After the age of 50, don't do it altogether. Today, the medic, if you ask a doctor, is it a big health benefit to give? No, they won't say yeah. They say, listen, if a blood bank needs thing, it'd be a nice man and give blood. But for your health, they're not going to tell you that this is a mila for your health.
Why did they used to think that it was a mishigas?
A mishigas. It was a pure mishigas.
It was a certain queen that used to think that it would make her look younger, a certain evil person, and she would mamish kill people to get their blood and then rub it on them.
Like Potter in this week's parsha.
Yeah, she thought that it would lengthen her life.
Yeah.
I saw it. I read about it.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, lahavdil.
Lahavdil.
Rabbi, the Rambam,
Maybe like Count Dracula.
the Rambam
No,
was a big
it was a real,
doctor.
it was a real history.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The Rambam was a big
The
doctor.
Rambam was
He
a
said
doctor, and the Rambam said
what
it.
he's saying.
So we see even from the times of the Rambam, it changed from the times of the Gemara. And the Bismanaz, if you'll ask doctors, they'll tell you there's mishigas, there's no myelin bloodletting. So, huh? Yeah, it could help when the person's blood pressure.
Blood decrease and blood pressure.
Thank you.
Down.
It-
Some people, I'll do blood letting every my shift.
Yeah, because the blood pressure, it makes it go down.
Pressure, yes. And second, people that have sickle cell bad blood and give very special disease with your blood is very bad. You need to get blood down, otherwise you get headache. Blood pressure is going down. It's very helpful for many people with the blood.
Wow, that's such a shkocha protest you were here today.
Talking to a nurse.
Yeah, I'm saying if you weren't here today, we wouldn't have known this.
Some people it's very healthy to get blood because blood pressure is down because there's volume
That helps to pick up the blood pressure.
decrease blood pressure.
Oh, if it's very high, you bring it.
Yeah, and a lot of people with headache, and if you don't let blood to go, the headache continue headache because volume of liquid in the body too much and create the vascular system to expand and too much pressure in the body. And this, if it's still produce too much, very thick, it's a hematocrit level is very high. Also, you need better to go to phlebotomy.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Okay. Wow. So first of all, I want to take back that I said it's a mishagas, the blood lead. It's not a mishagas.
Many people are saving a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now when we go back in the times of the Gemara, could be they knew. We always laugh at sometimes at the oldies, but they might have had techniques to know. How do you know when you need to, when it's good for a person? Okay, but he's helping us understand it.
I'm saying blood pressure medication, it's stomach, it's less decrease the amount of blood lead.
Okay, so
Cholesterol vera, this is very thick blood.
okay, so anyway, now we understand better that really there's such a thing as a causes dam. But right, so that's what they did. Okay, good. But if you're not doing it, l'refuah, makol makom vaday gam ata ika gam refuah bazeh. The lo yeh shini gadol kol kach. So it says that Moshe, even bizman hazeh, it could be, we don't know. Maybe it's healthy for you. And based on what Mordechai said, you never know. How do you know? Maybe you have high blood pressure and it'll be good for you. Maybe. And anyway, he says, it doesn't cause much tsar to a person. If you want to be makel, go ahead and be makel. It's interesting. It's not like a Moshe saying line up. It's a big mitzvah. It's a chiv deraisa. He was talking. They have to realize the question was that the person asked that he wants to get paid for giving a pint of blood. He's going to get $50 or something. So it could be if the person would have asked, listen, there's a drive and they must have the blood, maybe the Moshe would have answered differently. But the people, they quote the Moshe, that the Moshe says that it's a mitzvah. The Moshe never said it's a big mitzvah. He said, just like we find in the Shas, that there's an inyan of akozas dam. So could be even Bisman that's healthy, and we don't know. So if you want to be makel, you can be makel. Why? See, he has reservations. Why is he having reservations in his mind? Because you're not allowed to be chayvel for no reason. You're not allowed to go hurt yourself. So that's why you see that Moshe has a little bit of a reservation. But he says, huh?
Why they do it years ago? Why they borderlining it? I remember they did it.
He just have a doctor that just gave you. Oh, you'll have to ask him after the shir. Okay, no, third shir.
They don't do it. They still do it today.
He does it today. He does it all the time. Now, the third opinion is mitzvah. The Nishmas Avram writes that Rishon and Auerbach told him that if you're saving another yid, even if you're getting paid for it, there's no Kabbalah, there's no nothing. But again, that's not a third opinion, perhaps. That's maybe the first two opinions will also agree. If you're in Israel, every blood drive is kemat for a mitzvah. And even in New York, it might be that way. So And then the fourth shit is Nishmas Avram himself. He says it's a achiyuv, mechuyev. You're mechuyev to run to give as much blood as you could. So the Tzitz Eliezer writes to him, "Are you crazy?" He said, "Yeah, because it says that you're mechuyev to be mishtadol begufay to do Avos Yisrael. So I'm giving begufay. I'm giving a pint of blood." So the Tzitz Eliezer says, "Come on, that's not what Chazal said when they said begufay. Begufay they meant you should pick up your hands and your feet and run and help give him a sandwich, and help give him breakfast." But they didn't mean begufay that you were chuyev to give a pint of blood. Now, if takid, here's another interesting question that the poskim today talk. What's if you have a friend that has a special type of blood and you have a similar type of blood, and he's in sakona? Are you mechuyev? Are you taking mechuyev? Not to run to any blood bank, but are you taking mechuyev or not? And there's the question. Some say that you're still not mechuyev. You're not mechuyev. But you're mechuyev to run and to help and to go, but to give a pint of blood, you're not mechuyev. It's a big mitzvah if you did it. But some poskim say no. The Tzitz Eliezer b'chol, even though you know your blood type is similar to that blood type, you're not mechuyev. You're not mechuyev. If you do it, you did a mitzvah, but you're not mechuyev. You're not mechuyev. Now, if you said mechuyev, then all of a sudden you might have a question. Maybe you don't even need such strong consent. So what's if the person is a little bit of chosadeya or a cotton, and you need a blood? Say it's a family member, and you know there's a cotton, and you want to, and the child can't give consent, or it's an adult, but the adult is chosadeya. So if you would say that it's a chiyuv, so even then but he's not mechuyev. But so the Tzitz says no, you can't say it. It's a big mitzvah, it's not chiyuv. Okay, let's go quickly. So let's summarize. Definitely, if a yid needs blood and you have a similar blood type, that it's a big mitzvah to give blood. But Tzitz Eliezer doesn't think it's a chiyuv gomur. Now, if you stam azay, there's a blood drive, and so could be you have to be done. But if there's no blood drive for you to go give blood, there is a big suffix. And I found in a sikha, interesting sikha, the Rebbe says that there's shofach dam odem ba'odem, you're not allowed to spill blood, and that the Gemara says afa shofach dam atzmi, you're not allowed to spill your own blood. And the Rebbe says that a lot of times in the medical establishment they like to take blood for tests that are not necessary. And the Rebbe said tzorich iyun, it's a sikha, I'm just unbelievable, a sikha. And the Rebbe says tzorich iyun, if you're allowed to do it. If there's a medical necessity, and the Rebbe says, the Gemara says it's akodas dam because they knew what they were doing. And it was a medical necessity. But if there is zero medical necessity, it's just they like to bill and they have codes and they like to make money and whatever, they have mishagasin. And they're just taking blood from you for no reason. The Rebbe writes, keiner legt sich nicht da rein in dem, zu wissen, es ist ein Hecher Gomach zu machen, akodas dam. Or the nicht kein Hecher Gomach, people don't even ask. But there's a chash, shefach dam odem. Unless the doctor tells you that this is necessary for the fuah. And the Rebbe then said that people should, look into it. It's not stam, you could take blood whenever you want. You're not allowed to do Kabbalah for no reason. Okay, let's go quickly to the third shiloh. A girl sent me a picture. She's sitting in the Grand Army Plaza by a statue, and she says, am I being nana from Avodah Zorah? You're allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it. This week's Parsha, next week's Parsha. Huh? Exactly. So the Rambam writes,
why would you not be able to do it?
Because it's maybe Avodah Zorah, statue. So the Rambam writes like this: the goyim make statues. L'noi, if it's for beauty, muter b'noi, you're allowed to have a no, you're allowed to sit in the shade of that statue. You're allowed to have a no from that statue. If they're bowing to it, it's also. If he's at the entrance to a country and he's sitting up there with a sword, so it's a deity to them. That's like, they believe that this statue is protecting them. cheskosel avodah zarah, you're not allowed to have a noah. You're not allowed to sit in its shade or whatever other noah. You're not allowed to have a noah of it. But if it's cheskosel noah, then you're allowed to have a noah from it. So that's the answer to the question. The statues in Grand Army Plaza are not made for avodah zarah. The statues in the Grand Army Plaza are lanoi, and because they're lanoi, it's mutter to have.
Weren't they originally, I mean, they were honoring the Civil War heroes.
Exactly. So it's lanoi, it's la honor, it's la kovid, lanoi, but it's not la avodah zarah. So therefore, it's okay. They shall helfen that the opposite of lerosha lomatake lereecho is when you pick up your hand to help out another Jew, to pick up another Jew. That's the the Arizal said that before davening you have to say Areinu Makabel Alai Mitzvah, say Shavata Lecha Kamoicha. So Tzemach Tzedek says, why before davening? Why? It's all day you have to have Avos Yisrael. Tzemach Tzedek says, unbelievable thing, that when you come to daven, you want to bring a korban to the Eibishter, korban maloshen kiruv. And the worst thing you could do in the Beis HaMikdash is to bring a korban missing a hand or missing a leg. The worst thing a person could do is coming to a king to ask for a request, and he brings him a basket of fruits, and the fruits are all rotten. He comes to the White House, he brings a box of chocolate, and the chocolate is 7 years old. He regifted. There's a little note over there, Afreilichem Purim, 1977. Do you think that you're now going to get a curry favor with this president? So, what is a healthy Jew? A healthy Jew is that there's blood circulation, and he feels his hands and his toes and his legs. There's a whole healthy blood circulation. He sees another Yid has a simcha, he married off a daughter, he feels such joy, it tickles his heart. Another Yid found a job, he's making a bar mitzvah, he's so happy, a bar mitzvah bacher, feels such joy. Because the other Yid and me is really one. This is really one thing. So that, when a Yid has that attitude, say that's a kosher korban. But if chas v'shalom a Yid is feeling distant from another Jew, well, that means that spiritually, Rahman Slan, his hand is amputated, his leg is amputated. He's bringing a korban which is not kosher to the Eibishter. He's bringing a non-kosher korban. That's a terrible thing. It's a non-kosher korban. So therefore, the Arizal said that in order to make sure that we have a kosher korban before we start davening, we should say Areinu Makabel Alai Mitzvah Sei Shavavta L'Recha Kamoicha. Okay, David shall help from the Taka that we should always feel that Avos Yisrael, we should be a korban shalom to Eibishter, and Eibishter be to skabel tzloisen the v'usen the chol Beis Yisrael. The mitzvah bach. Mishkoach everyone that's joining us.
Right.
Thank you, by the way.